Hey guys, I'm Casey Armstrong. This is WMAP, the world's most amazing people.
Host Casey Armstrong has a really good heart, and I think he actually really cares what the people have to say. And I think that the idea has been great, and all these people have the opportunity to really share their stories and get their words out. I love WMAP because I hear stories that inspire me.
I happen to be of belief that everyone, doesn't matter what it is, it's how you look at it. This is WMAP, the world's most amazing people.
Maybe I'm a man, maybe I'm a lonely man who's in the middle of something that he doesn't really understand. Maybe I'm a man, and maybe you're the only woman who can ever help me. Maybe won't you help me to understand?
Hey guys, it's Kelly. I'm back with you, and I have a great guest who's joining us again today on the show. I have Karen Chaston, who was on our show earlier, but I feel like we didn't get to hear enough from her. So Karen, how are you doing today?
Really good, thank you.
I'm doing.
How's it going over there?
It's going great. Thank you so much, and I'm so glad we get to talk again.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so now I know we got to talk, but I wanted to kind of get more of your story and more of your background, and I was wondering if you could tell our listeners kind of how you got your start.
How I got my start in what I'm doing now?
No, how you I know you started in the corporate world. That was the first place
Yes.
where you really were, and I wanted to know more about that.
Okay, so, well, I didn't really, I worked in the corporate world, but it wasn't until I was like 38 that I actually had a boss. I worked in an accounts department, and he said to me, will you go and get your bit of paper? You're never going to get paid what you think you deserve without that bit of paper. And it was the best advice he ever gave me. So I went to university at Bond, and because I was 38, I had life experience. I could go straight into a master's degree. I didn't have to do an undergrad. So 2.5 years later, I graduated with a master's of accounting. And that's when I really started on then I got my CPA. And that's when I really started on my corporate career. I had teenage boys at that stage. So that was good. They didn't need mum around as much. So I just really took off. And within about 7 years, I became CFO of a publicly listed company. But at the time, I didn't realise what stress actually does to a woman's body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's bad in a man's body, but it's even worse in a woman's body. And that's one of the reasons why we tend to put on a lot of weight when we're really stressed. And that's exactly what I did. And so I was, what I like to say, I was working way too much, eating way too much, and drinking way too much. But I just thought that was normal because all my peers were exactly the same, just doing exactly the same things. And I thought, well, if you want to earn that money, that's exactly what you got to do.
Yeah, that's got to be very stressful, though, to be in that kind of position. Now, I just want to jump back for a second because you said you didn't have to do your undergraduate. You were able to just do your master's. I think you kind of explained that, but I wanted to know a little more about that.
Okay. So because I had life experience and I worked in an accounts department, the university said, well, you don't need to do all of those other subjects, which was great because I went to a private university and it was like $2,000 a subject. So, and I only had 15 subjects to do instead of 24. So that was really good, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, yes. It's just I've never heard of that before.
Oh, no, actually, a lot of universities do it more for mature age students. And I guess they know that you come with so much wisdom because I guess, I'd been working for 20 years at that stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And so now you were saying that you didn't realize what the stress was doing to you and you were just trying to kind of live the same way as everybody else. When did you feel it was starting to catch up with you?
Well, I didn't even realize, if someone had said to me at that stage, how do you cope with stress? I would have said, I never get stressed,
mm-hmm.
right? Because I just thought, well, this is normal. But I was so stressed. And when I left the corporate world and I started on my journey that I'm on now, which I like to call the journey to becoming my own best friend, I then learned a lot about what actually stress does, adrenaline, cortisol, what actually happens in a woman's body. And as I said, it's bad in a man's, but it's even worse in a woman's body. because we are genetically designed to be the gatherers. We're not the hunters, but we're now in those hunter roles. And that's why it's such a toll on our bodies. Sure, there's a lot of coping mechanisms which you can do, which is what I train people on now. But if you're not aware of them, you're not doing it. You think how many women get to like 38 and they decide, I'm going to have a child now. And then they can't. Like how many people are, using IVF and all those sort of different things in order to become pregnant and have a child? It all comes back to the stress and not managing it in your body. And that's what causes all of these fertility problems.
Yeah, and I think it's so hard for us to, as you said, you're able to talk to people about how to deal with that stress and how to cope with it. But I think for many people who don't have those tools, they don't even realize how much of an effect it's having on them. Like you said, not being able to get pregnant, that's such a big thing, when women really want to try, and it can be very frustrating.
It can be very frustrating. And do you know what's really incredible? And this is what, when I learned this, I thought, oh my God, why isn't this taught like in basic, science or biology at school? The quickest way that you can cope with stress is to take a deep, deep belly breath. Because that brings your parasympathetic nervous system. Because at the moment, if you're stressed and running on cortisol and adrenaline, you're in your sympathetic nervous system. And we have both. So your sympathetic nervous system is designed for when you've got to run away from a saber-toothed tiger. So when you've got to sort of put everything, all the blood goes to your extremities so that you can run faster, you can fight faster, all those sort of things. Whereas your parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and restore system. So that's when your beautiful dopamine and serotonin and all of those beautiful hormones come into your body and make you feel good. So by actually taking a deep, deep breath, especially deep down into your belly, where you activate the endings of the vagus nervous system, you actually start to bring in oxytocin. And oxytocin is the love hormone. It's what comes into your body, it gives you instant bond between a mother and child. When you give birth, you're sort of in overflow of oxytocin at that stage. So by doing that, you're actually bringing yourself back down. Now, who would have thought your breath is your best stress releaser?
I wouldn't have. I know that sometimes when you kind of take a moment and take a breath, it can be relaxing, but I didn't know that there was that much going on where it had all of those effects.
Exactly. And why aren't we told that? Like, why aren't we told that at school? Like, everything I teach now should be told at school. Would you listen? Maybe not. But you would retain some of it. And that's the thing, is we have everything in our body to help us cope with any situation. Laughter. If you're feeling down, start laughing. Sure, it might be fake at first, but how good do you feel when you have a really good belly laugh?
Oh, it feels amazing.
Exactly. So all these natural little things, you don't have to spend any money on how to cope with stress. You just need to understand the way our body is designed with the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And when you understand that you need both, but when you know how to balance both, that is how we can, obtain this beautiful life where we can live and love.
Wow. And as you said, why aren't we being more educated about this? And I think that's what is so important about what you're doing, because you're spreading all of this information that is so helpful and important for people to have.
Thank you. And I agree. But, I still think the education system, and it's not just in Australia, it's worldwide. It really needs to be looked at and bringing children out into the world where they actually understand how to even finance, how to budget, how not to run up credit cards. Simple things like that. They're not taught that.
No, you're definitely right. Now, I want to get back to your journey a little bit, because we talked about how you how you made your way up in the corporate world, and then you got to this place where everything just seemed to get frustrating, and I hope I'm using the correct word.
Yes, it was. Had this constant. I like to say, like, this constant nagging feeling inside of me, which was, surely there's an easier way to cope at this level. Surely there's an easier way. And I was using, like food and alcohol as my coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And I just would grab whatever was available to eat. I wasn't even conscious of what I was eating. Sure, I knew how to eat properly, but I just went for the quick fixes because it was like, no, I just need to do this now. I've only got, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. Eating at my desk, doing all the things that you shouldn't do and that are no good for you at all. And then what happened was one Sunday morning, on the 10th of July, 2011, it was a Sunday morning, my husband and I woke up thinking we were just going to have a relaxing Sunday at home. And my husband went to take the garbage outside, and then he sort of called up the stairs and he went, bloody hell, Dan is asleep at the back door.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dan was our 27-year-old son. Sure, he had a habit of, drinking too much, but he always made it home to bed. So alarm bells really went off for me, and I ran downstairs, and he was lying in the fetal position with saliva sort of coming out of his mouth. But unfortunately, he wasn't asleep. He'd actually had passed away a few hours earlier.
Oh, my gosh. What was the cause, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, it took a while for us to actually find out. But what had happened was he, 2 years previously, he'd been in Scotland and he'd got pneumonia and he'd spent a week in hospital. And his lungs were really bad, like so bad that they actually said that if he had smoked full on for like 10, 12 years, which he hadn't, he was only a social smoker, he couldn't have done a quarter of the damage. So what we found out, and it took me a while, it was he had come home, he had left his key out, his girlfriend and him had gone out separately, and he bent down to pick the key up and he fell over, he shook everything up, and then he just couldn't catch his breath, so he passed away.
Wow, I'm so sorry for your loss, and that is such an unexpected thing to happen. It's I want to use the word random, but I don't want to unjustify what happened because it's so crazy.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. Like, it was so unexpected, and the last thing we expected, obviously, because he was healthy on the outside. We didn't realise how bad his lungs were. It's not as though he was coughing or anything like that. So it was very unexpected. And I sort of wish I hadn't have lent him the $100 to go out with, if that makes sense.
No, I definitely understand.
Yeah.
But what's crazy, though, is whether or not you had lent him that money, I mean, you never know. The same thing could have happened while he was trying to take a shower, and God forbid he dropped a towel,
Of course.
Of
course. And I'm a great believer when you're meant to go, you're meant to go,
Yes, definitely.
So, yes. But I spend more time with him now than I do with his two brothers. He's always around me. He's always showing me signs that he's with me. And honestly, I put my reinvention of myself, my coming back to my true me, totally down to him. All of my books I give him credit for. He's always there guiding me, showing me things that, I just wasn't aware of before. Completely different perspectives and everything, which I just have to love. If I can't have him here physically, he's certainly helping me from the other side.
Yeah, and it's incredible. I've lost too many people that I would like. I don't even want to count the number because it's a lot of people that have been really close to me that I've lost. And I find it amazing what we can do with those losses, that we can help. They can help us move forward in our lives, and we can take all of those memories as just tools to do things differently and have a new mindset. And I think that can be very incredible and very healing.
That's right, and it really actually makes you value the day. It makes you, because, we've all got the same birth certificate that doesn't have an expiry date on it. Mm-hmm. So who knows when that date is going to be? So why not enjoy today? As they say, it's called the present for a reason. It's the gift that you've been given. You wake up every morning and you think, oh, my God, I've got a gift of another day. And so many times we just waste it. Like I said, I was living in my Groundhog Day days, and so many people are just living the same day over and over and over. not even appreciating nature and just how beautiful the world actually is.
I know, and when we spoke before, I love the term you used. You called it your Groundhog Day, just doing the same thing over and over again. And I think, like you said, we all get caught up in that. And even something like nature that's right outside of our windows, we fail to recognize sometimes on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly. And even like as simple as looking at a flower, and you actually look at how a flower is put together, it's incredible. It's a whole network system, just like our bodies. But we never take the time to actually enjoy it.
No, that's so true. It's so funny, too, and I know this is a little off topic, but recently a friend of mine posted a picture of a caterpillar, and it didn't even look real. It looked fake, and I'm trying to remember what the name of it is because it had the strangest name, but it looked like a cartoon character, and it's something that was local to us, and I couldn't believe that it existed. And it was actually called the spice bush swallowtail, and I was so taken back because
really?
Yeah, and it's this beautiful caterpillar that turns into a beautiful butterfly, and I was like, wow, this is something that so many people I'm sure don't even know exists, and my friend got to view it, and it was just one of those moments that you were talking about, and I just thought it was a really great example to bring up.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for sharing that. I'll have to look that one up.
Yes, definitely check that one out. So, okay, so back to your story. So now, your son passed away, and like I said, I am so sorry for your loss, and I know how
Thank
difficult that is. And now through this, you started to change and evolve, and I wanted to ask, when was the time
Well,
that
it took me a lot longer than that. I actually went straight back to work.
I'm
when he passed.
summing it up a little too close, but that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you told me that, because I kind of wanted to ask, what was the transition between going back to work and then when you started to change your path, and when did you start writing your books, because you've written so many books?
Oh, thank you. Well, it actually took me probably about 15 months, 17 months after Dan passed for me to actually, what I like to say, to take my conscious loving breath, because I just literally went straight back to work. I worked even more, ate even more, drank even more, and really was not coping. I was always angry. It would take absolutely nothing to set me off. And then, life had to intervene again, or the universe had to intervene again to actually go, you were meant to wake up then, and you didn't. So here's another little tragic event, which was two companies merged together, and when they decided to offer me 2/3 of my salary for exactly the same role with a different title, at least I had enough sense to say no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that, which is good, because I began to realize I was only there for the money. I really, and to be honest, even though I was there for the money, I was wasting a lot of money because I was not in who I am. So I was wasting money trying these quick fixes of buying things to give me pleasure. And as we all know, that's only a very, very short cycle where you will be happy about it. Mm-hmm. And then you sort of just, consumerism just isn't the answer when you are not coping with things, believe me.
Yes, no, I've definitely been there. I've definitely been at the point where I've just tried to use money and things and, items to try to, take away my feelings, and that never works.
No, and your happiness comes from within. It's not going to come from anything external, and it took me a long time to actually realize that. So that was 2012 when I started to take the breath and say, okay, what's going on here? Where am I? Who am I? What do you actually want? And so that's when I started on my journey to becoming my own best friend. I think I wrote my first book. Well, I actually wrote 2 books in 2014. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote another one, I think, in 16. Then I did my gratitude journals in 16 as well. And the Live, Love by Design I actually wrote earlier this year in January, which came easily because it was the first book redone with the extra 4 years of advice and learnings that I had learned over the 4 years. And it truly is everything that I do now. It's all about Live, Love by Design, because most of us don't take the time to design our life. We just let life take us wherever it takes us, as opposed to consciously saying, this is where I want to go. Okay, how do I get from where I am now to there, and then taking those action steps?
That's true. And like we were saying earlier, I think people just get so bogged down in that day-to-day regular routine with nothing offsetting it, with nothing changing it, just basically trying to get through to the day and to the next paycheck.
Exactly. And how many times does, we run out of money before we run out of months?
Yes, that happens often. Now,
it does, and it shouldn't.
No, definitely not. Now, in this new, I guess I want to say, in this new journey that you started on with writing and this new way of thinking, did you have any new training, or did you just kind of go into it head on?
I did have some training. I I became part of the Braveheart women community. And that's where I learned a lot, about the adrenaline, the cortisol. I learned a lot about a woman's body. I learned a real lot about, fight and flight, all those sort of things. Even though I had known it, I didn't understand it to the degree that I do now. And then from there, I've so many speakers that I love to listen to. I've learned so much from so many great people. Wayne Dyer, for example, Dr. DeMartini. I've learned from Brendan Bouchard. So many great people, Louise Hay. But the writing actually just came to me. I actually was approached by some guy, and he said that he could write my book for me for $20,000. And I went, but then it's not my book.
Yeah.
And he said, well, yes, it is, because we'll grab everything out of your head and we'll put it into a book. And I went, but I've got to stand on stage and say I've written a book. But if I haven't written the book, how can I do that? And he goes, well, it is all your content, all this sort of stuff. And then I was talking to a couple of people. I was in this CEO group, and they said to me, why would you even bother? You can write a book. You're a smart lady. You know how to write. And I just thought, you're right. So I went to a lady who gave me, she guided me, but it cost me like $200 or something. It didn't cost me $20,000. And then I just started writing. She said, just write, something before we meet next week. And I went, okay. I had written the introduction to my first book. She went, oh, my God. And it just flowed so easily. And that's what I said. Dan is on the other side. He's guiding me. And he was actually feeding me the second book, which is actually the book about him, which is called Beyond a Mother's Worst Nightmare. And so he was feeding me the second book while I'm writing the first book. And I woke up one day and I said, well, yeah, leave me alone. Let me write this first book first. So I literally wrote two of them, I think, something like 13, 14 weeks. Because I was aware and guided, and I write like I talk. So, and I know how to talk, obviously.
Yes, you do. So but I love talking to you. I think you're fantastic.
Oh, thank you. So, yes. So it comes quite easily. And to be quite honest, I actually met with a girlfriend, a school friend, because my third book was the book I always ever thought I would write, which is The Teenagers Playing Grown-Ups. And it's about the story of 4 teenage girls. They all fall pregnant, and they all choose a different option. So one gets married, one has an abortion, one chooses motherhood, as in single motherhood, and the other one adopts the child out. And so I met with my girlfriend because I, at 16, adopted my child out. And roughly around the same time, I had 2 girlfriends, one who did get married and one who did have an abortion. So I met with my girlfriend and I said to her, look, I want to write this book. Do you want to write your story? Mm-hmm. And she said, no, I don't want to write my story. She said, but I don't understand why you're writing a book. You were hopeless at English at school. And I'm like, but that was 40 years ago. I've done a little bit of things since then.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how so many people pigeonhole you into this spot of who you were. And it's like, but surely I've grown since then. And if I haven't, what have I been doing?
Yes, and I couldn't agree with you more about what you said about people pigeonholing you. I mean, I feel like people get this idea of you, and no matter how much time goes by, especially if they don't know you very well, if they're not someone that's very close in your life, they do keep you in a certain position. Even if you've evolved, even if you've changed, I feel like you still get pegged as this one particular person.
Yes, totally. And you think, oh, okay. It's funny, isn't it? Because you think, life is about journeying and growing through every stage, which is why I've never understood why women try to look, and some men, try to always look like they're 30. It's like, no. It's about being every age. Sure, you know, everyone wants to look great and everything like that, but you can still love who you are at the age that you are now.
Yes.
And still, you know, your wisdom is what comes through, and that makes you even more beautiful and from a physical perspective.
I definitely agree with you. Now, since we're getting close to our time, because it just goes so quickly when I talk to you, I want to make sure, because I know we have a few interviews that we're going to have with you, but I want to make sure we mention this in every interview, because you have a wonderful project that you're working on, Live Love by Design, and which is a project giving back to teens. And I just wanted you to tell us a little bit about that before we run out of time.
Okay, so what that's about is actually I want to sponsor as many young women, whether they were, you know, had an unexpected pregnancy. Doesn't matter what solution they decided on, whether they kept their baby or they adopted their baby out or whether they actually aborted their baby or anything. It doesn't matter what scenario they're in. I want to sponsor them into my Live Love by Design Keys to a Young Woman's Success program, which is a 25-week online program. And I want to raise funds, and there's a fundraising page with amazing rewards on it for people who can contribute to it, so that we can help these women to actually understand that, do you know what, no matter what life throws at you, excuse me, you can still create your dreams and desires. All you need is the tools. And I just wish that I had this advice when I was in my 20s. Oh, my God. How different my life would have been. Now, I've had a great life, but it still could have been better to be more aware, to actually understand not only myself, but to understand other people better. I just think that's what the world requires. And to be able to help these young women to actually know who they are and to be a contributing part of society, to actually be able to care for their family. That's what it's all about. And that's why I'm so wrapped in the fact that I can actually do this. I can actually give my program to them through sponsorships, because obviously it takes a lot to market it, and it takes a lot for people to go through it, because there is a admin side to it, even though people are sponsored into the program, to make sure that they are doing it. So that's what that project's all about.
Of course. And I want to give our listeners your websites as well. I have a few websites for you. I have KarenChasten.com/AU. We have livelovebydesign.com.AU. And I believe, and I want to make sure I have this correct for the fundraising website, it's fundraiser.com/live-love-teen-project. I have all those correct?
No.
Oh,
The
okay.
Live Love by Design is only .com. There's no .au.
Oh, my apologies.
That's okay. And Karen Chasen is .com.au. Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. And I want to also direct our listeners, if they want to find more of your books, they can find you listed on Amazon that has all your books, and they're also listed on your website. And the newest book is Live Love by Design.
That's right. And if they go to the livelovebydesign.com, they can actually download a free PDF of the entire book, which is amazing, because it's all about helping people understand. And actually in that book, you know what, there's 72 exercises.
Great. Karen, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. And next time we talk, we can kind of pick up where we left off, because you have such an incredible story and you've done so many amazing things. I want our listeners to hear about every single one of them.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. I love talking to you.
Yes, I love talking to you as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you again for taking the time out to speak with us today.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right. Take care.
Baby got a gun, how's she to know? she cry.